Okay, so let's go ahead and launch Flix. Our team is all working remotely, and we're going to first assume the role of the production coordinator. We're going to need to set up a project so the team and anyone else with input can have something to work with. So here's our login page. Our login method is going to be set up by the IT department. We'll have a look at both options, but first we're going to log in as administrator as we want to make some changes at a studio level. So we don't have any shows set up at the moment. Let's go ahead and head over to the new show button and fill in some data. So the tracking code is a short code which will be helpful for our naming conventions. We're going to get to that a little bit later on. So let's go ahead and enter THP, and the title of our show is The Happy Prince. We can go ahead and add a description for the show if we want, and we can also select a preview image. I have one already handy, so let's go ahead and add that. So the next section is the configuration portion. So from here we can go ahead and set up our frame rate. So we have the option to change our project to episodic, which will give us additional layers, episode and season when it comes to sequences, as well as naming convention. Ours is not, it's a feature, so we're going to go ahead and just turn that off. And we can also set up our aspect ratio from here. And lastly, we have our permission. So this is where we introduce the idea of work groups. So what this means is if we want certain people to have certain access to shows, we can assign those groups here, and we'll take a look at that a little bit later on. So right now I'm going to go ahead and select default and create. So just like that, we've created our new show. Now if we hover over it, we'll see that all of the information that it has regarding the show as well as a description. And if we select it, we'll be prompted to build a new sequence. Since we don't have any sequences set up, we can go and do this right away. And we always have access at a later point where we can go and add additional sequences if we need to. So from here, we're going to go ahead and enter a tracking code. So we'll do 01 for sequence 1. The title of the sequence, we can enter an act and comments if we want to. So now we can quickly go and build out additional sequences. Now this is something that is nice and fluid inside of Flix, where we can build out tons of sequences in succession just like that. So now that the project is set up, our artists can get to work. But it'd probably be smart to first set up some rules for the production to follow, like naming conventions, settings when communicating with Avid. So let's go and look at where those are located. Since we're logged in as administrator, we can access the management console. This way we can set up how things outside of Flix stay organized and consistent. So from here we can see all the users that are associated with our Flix. We can create new ones. Here's the group management, where we can go in and create groups and assign people to those groups. So if we want to have specific access for people to certain projects, we would create the groups here. This way they'll only be able to see the shows that they're assigned to through the groups. What we want to hone in on here is the studio settings. We want to jump under third-party apps and general. And what we want to do is make sure that we have our sketching tool set up and that Avid Media Composer is the only editorial package that Flix can publish to. And we'll do this by ensuring we enforce this at a studio level. We want to make sure that our clip and sequence naming convention is set up. So we have these name chips that are being used to automatically generate the names of our sequences and clips. And underneath, you can see that we have the different chips that are available. So we can add additional ones, whichever makes sense for the studio or what we've agreed upon. We also want to do the same thing, not for the clips, but also for the sequence. And very important, we want to make sure that our published directory is somewhere that everyone can access to it on editorial. Now I want to do the same thing for the Avid Media Composer options. At this point, we would want to sit down with our editor and just agree upon preferred settings and make sure that we enforce them, so no matter who is publishing, all deliveries will be consistent. And then finally, for our exporting, we want to make sure that there's times where we need to export PSDs or QuickTimes for whatever reason, that everything is organized during these exports. So not only the naming conventions, but also where these will be exported to. A couple of things to note is if we were to log in as a user and go under our user preferences, these options would be grayed out as these are set at an administrative and a studio level. And another thing to note is if you want to set these options per show, we can click on the menu icon for the show on the home page and then enforce these preferences at a show level rather than at a studio level. Okay, so as a production coordinator, we've set up the project and preferences. So now let's become an artist and complete the first pass for a sequence using different Photoshop workflows.